Seth Rowee's heart pounded as he stared into the dark, gaping mouth of the cave. From the outside, it looked harmless. A simple opening in the hillside, surrounded by mossy rocks and the sound of chirping birds, but he couldn't shake the nervous energy bubbling inside him. He took a deep breath and tightened his grip on the straps of his gear. "Let's do this," his friend Danny said, grinning and slapping him on the back. Seth forced a smile, trying to share Danny's enthusiasm. The group of 5, Seth, Danny, Mia, Rachel, and their guide Tom, were all excited for the challenge ahead. The cave they were about to explore was notorious for its tight passages, unpredictable twists, and unforgiving nature. For experienced caviers, it was a badge of honor to conquer it. For newcomers like Seth, it was something entirely different. The first few minutes inside the cave were almost magical. Their headlamps illuminated glistening rock walls and eerie formations shaped by centuries of water dripping through stone. The air was cool and damp, carrying an earthy smell that felt both calming and mysterious. "See? Not so bad," Danny said, his voice echoing slightly. "Yeah," Seth agreed, though the tightness in his chest didn't completely go away. He focused on putting one foot in front of the other, trying to match the confidence of the others. Tom led the way, pointing out interesting rock formations and keeping the group on track. They crawled through low passages, climbed over rocky mounds, and squeezed through tight spaces that felt like they were barely big enough for their bodies. Each time Seth's body scraped against the cold stone, he winced, but he kept moving. The group laughed and joked as they explored, their voices bouncing off the walls. For a while, Seth felt like he could handle it, but as they ventured deeper into the cave, the atmosphere began to change. The tunnels became narrower, the air heavier, the once easy walk turned into a crawl, and the group had to wriggle on their stomachs to pass through some sections. Every movement felt like a chore, and the once lively chatter turned into strained silence. "Are we almost to the main chamber?" Mia asked, her voice muffled as she squeezed through a particularly tight passage. Tom checked the map, his face lit by the pale glow of his headlamp. "Just a little further," he said. Seth wasn't convinced. The map looked more like a confusing maze of lines than a clear guide. He didn't want to doubt Tom, but his unease was growing. When they finally reached the chamber, Seth exhaled in relief. It was a small, open space where they could sit upright and stretch their aching limbs. The group took a break, sipping water and munching on snacks. "This isn't so bad," Rachel said, her voice trying to sound upbeat. "Piece of cake, me," Danny added, though he was clearly tired. Seth stayed quiet, his eyes fixed on the dark tunnel ahead. Something about it felt off. After their break, Tom announced it was time to move on. They packed up and continued through a narrow passage that twisted and turned like a snake. The walls seemed to close in tighter with every step. "Tom, are you sure this is the right way?" Rachel asked after a while. "Pretty sure," Tom replied, though his tone lacked confidence. The tunnel became even tighter, forcing them to crawl on their stomachs again. Seth's heart raced as his arms pushed him forward inch by inch. The rocks pressed against his chest and his breathing grew shallow. Suddenly, Tom stopped. "Wait a second," he said, checking the map. "What's wrong?" Mia asked, her voice strained. "This might not be the right tunnel," Tom admitted. The words sent a wave of panic through the group. They tried to backtrack, but the narrow passage made it nearly impossible to turn around. Every move felt like a struggle, the rocks scraping their bodies and the walls pressing in on all sides. Seth's heart pounded so loudly he could hear it in his ears. The thought of being stuck underground with no clear way out made his stomach churn. After what felt like an eternity, they managed to retreat to a slightly wider section of the tunnel. The group sat in uneasy silence as Tom studied the map again. "We need to keep moving," Tom finally said. "If we stick to this path, it should connect to another chamber." "Should?" Seth asked, his voice shaking. "It's the best option we have," Tom replied. The next few hours were pure torture. The group crawled, climbed, and squeezed their way through the unforgiving tunnels, their bodies aching and their spirits waning. Seth's arms and legs burned with every movement, and his headlamp flickered ominously. At one point, Mia got her foot stuck between two rocks. It took all of them working together to free her, and by then, they were completely drained. "I don't know how much longer I can do this," Rachel said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Just a little further," Tom said, though even he sounded unsure. Seth tried to stay calm, but the oppressive weight of the cave felt like it was crushing him. The walls seemed to close in tighter, and the darkness felt alive, swallowing every bit of light their headlamps produced. When the group reached another chamber, they collapsed onto the ground, too tired to speak. Seth leaned his head against the wall, his breathing ragged. Tom checked the map again, his face pale. "If we're here, then the exit should be close," he said. "Should?" Danny muttered, shaking his head. "We don't have any other choice," Tom said. The group pressed on, their movements slower and more deliberate. Then, just when it seemed like hope was lost, Seth spotted something, a faint glimmer of light ahead. "Do you see that?" he whispered, his voice trembling. The others stopped, squinting into the darkness. The light was faint, but it was there. "Is that the exit?" Mia asked, her voice filled with hope. Tom nodded, his face breaking into a relieved smile. "Let's go." The group pushed forward with renewed energy, their tired bodies fueled by the thought of escape. The tunnel widened, and the air grew fresher. When they finally emerged into the open air, they collapsed onto the grass, gasping and laughing with relief. Seth lay on his back, staring up at the sky. The blue expanse felt impossibly vast after the claustrophobic confines of the cave. He could feel the sun on his skin and hear the chirping of birds, a welcome reminder that they were alive. As the group packed up their gear and headed back to their cars, Seth couldn't stop thinking about what they'd just been through. The cave had tested them in ways he never imagined. It had pushed them to their limits, both physically and mentally. Seth knew he would never forget the feeling of being trapped, the fear of the unknown, and the relief of finding the way out. The experience had changed him, leaving him with a newfound respect for the dangers of caving. Would he ever go caving again? Maybe, but if he did, he'd make sure to be better prepared, because he never wanted to feel that helpless again. And so Seth Rowee's story became a cautionary tale for anyone who dared to explore the unpredictable world beneath the earth. It wasn't just about adventure, it was about survival, and Seth would carry that lesson with him for the rest of his life. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like our channel for more amazing content.